I'm just going to get started. First of all, hi and welcome everyone to our Meet the Electronic Digital Instrument Department webinar. My name is Alexa Rosari. I'm the Associate Dean of Admissions Recruitment. I'm also an alumna of the college and very passionate about audio and electronic digital music myself. And I will be facilitating today's event for you. First of all, congratulations again to all of you for being admitted to Berklee. We are super excited to have you here with us and to be able to connect with you live. So before we begin, though, just a few housekeeping items. This event is being recorded, and we will be sharing the recording with all of you. So if you can't stay till the end for whatever reason, you will have the opportunity to watch the recording later. But of course, we hope you can stay. If you do have any questions throughout the event, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen and submit your questions there, and we will pick them up from there. So I want to start by introducing my colleagues who are here with me on camera today. You see Drew Dorman is my colleague from admissions. He's the Assistant Director of Admissions. Hey, Drew. He's here to help me run the technology, and he and I will both be happy to answer any admissions-related questions should you have any. However, I do want to emphasize that today's event is all about EDI. And here to talk about the curriculum and what to expect and so forth are the chair of the department, Michael Birillo, and the assistant chair, Michelle Darling. So now I'm going to turn it over to you, Michael and Michelle. Oh, Michael, you're muted. So
there we go.
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexia. Welcome, everybody. We are excited to meet you. You all are part of a group of students here at Berklee who are really, truly pioneers. This will be the second entering class of EDI students. And so we're really appreciative of this opportunity to get to meet you now and to give you a better idea of what to expect when the semester starts, what to expect of the program. Now, one of the things we found is that you all probably have a lot of questions. This is a little bit different than coming to Berklee as a piano principal. Everybody knows what a piano is, but you all probably have very individual instruments that you've created, that you've practiced with. And so given this, there's a lot of questions that you'll probably have that we have been coming against for the last year or so. So I'd like to share a little bit of the things that we have learned and some of the things for you to expect. My colleague, Michelle Darling, is going to be, we're going to be going back and forth between each other as part of this presentation. So I'm going to hit my sharing the silver screen, and we'll get started with this. Okay, is everybody able to see? Okay, great. So the electronic digital instrument principle at Berklee. So there's a few things to think about in doing this. First of all, what is it? What do we actually mean by a digital instrument? And so first of all, it's a player designed system. Chances are you did not go to Guitar Center and buy a single thing called an EDI, but you've designed this, and part of what you'll experience in the program is continued growth as you learn more and be able to continue your design process, expanding on what your instrument is already. Now, one thing just to be really clear about, this is a performance program. It's not a production program. And one of the things that's confusing to some people is that many of the same tools that you use to produce, you use to perform. Not all of them. So it's a player design system. So you have to have a computing device of some sort. So for most of you, that's going to be your laptop computer. If in fact your computing device happens to be an iPad, we can take a look at that and see what that's going to be. But in this day and age, what we think of as an EDI is really a very broad category of different devices that work together in a system to let you play music. Okay, software. So we're going to have a software component of this. And so one of the things, the curriculum that we've kind of laid out is really right now based in Ableton Live. So my guess is that some of you are already using Live. My guess too is that some of you may not be using Ableton Live. But what we have learned is that to have everybody on a common platform, at least to start out in the program, is going to help all of you learn and help all of you meet the proficiency requirements that we've set out and we've established. So this is one of the things you'll have to be thinking about if you do not already have Ableton Live. Before the semester starts, you should actually go out and purchase it. There's academic pricing programs through Berklee and actually through Ableton that will help you get up and running. So you're also going to have at least one hardware controller. In fact, some of you may have more than one hardware controller. And some of the things that we're looking at, some of you probably have a keyboard controller. Some of you may have a grid controller. Some of you may have a device that combines both of these. There's also a mix control. So a lot of what we're going to be doing in electronic performance is doing live mixing of either live sources, recording sources, but you're really going to be able to incorporate in your performance elements that you would take over from production. You'd be doing that live. And there are specific types of controllers that will help you do that. Now, one of the things that we're assuming that when you come into the program, you're probably pretty good at one of these. If you got into Berklee and auditioned, chances are you're good at something. So when you get to Berklee, we're going to celebrate that, but we're going to help you expand your horizons so that your idea of what a performance system is going to be will really grow over the next couple of years. Okay, so my colleague Michelle is going to talk about some of the key performance techniques that we've identified, some of the things that, number one, you're probably already doing, but some of the things that you'll be developing. So Michelle. I think, Michelle, you need to unmute.
I did the same thing, didn't I?
You know, there's this birds of a feather thing.
I'm used to having my mic on most of the time for these, so I guess I'll just leave it on from here on out. So one thing that, thank you, Michael, actually, for the introduction, and so nice to meet you all on here, and welcome to Berklee. We're very excited that you're here, and really looking forward to helping support you in your growth through EDI when you come to Berklee. So the key performance techniques, Michael had mentioned that this is a performance program, not a production program. So one of the main things that he's gone over what kind of instruments you'll be working on, but we also want you to focus on the actual techniques that you're going to be using. So keyboard playing is one. So using a keyboard, playing melodies, playing harmonies, playing two-handed, using the pitch bend and the modulation wheel, to really getting that whole performance integrated, worked out on the keyboard is important. Now, some of you might have come in with the keyboard knowledge, and some of you maybe not. So we're encouraging all students to add controllers, really get good at work at one controller, but then adding other controllers and other performance techniques as well, and see which ones you really take to build as part of your system. So another type of controller rather is grid controller. And you can see grid controllers in the picture right there in case you were curious about what a grid controller is. Basically, it has these pads. Sometimes it's 4x4 or 16x16 or 8x8. It really depends on the controller. The grid is basically just that in a grid, and it's really an interesting way to play melodies, to play harmonies, to play chords, but it's also great for finger drumming and learning how to play drums in a very percussive manner on them. And it also is really good for remixing and sampling and that kind of thing. So remixing or mashups rather. So there's a lot of different things you can do with the grid controller that's different from the keyboard. But also our students learn how to use both and might have both in their system and learn why you might use one over the other. Live looping then is the process of learning how to record from a microphone different parts that you might clock together and loop, and then play over each other so that your whole performance is recorded and playing together. So we do have labs in live looping, and that's something we also encourage students to incorporate into their performance rig and performance setup. Then next is effects processing and control. So that could be a number of different things, but basically adding the icing onto your performance, onto your sound. Changing the sounds in the moment, live, processing them, being able to control in a lot of different ways the sounds from effects from things like reverb and delays and all sorts of effects that you'll be learning about. And incorporating those into your performance so it's more expressive. And, the next one is DJ performance techniques. We also do have labs and ensemble even on DJ performing. So that means taking music that may be existing and learning how to work with it together, learning how to build your sets, and learning how to actually affect them and process them live to become a really dynamic DJ, either with your own music or other people's music. Mixed control is the next one, and that's really having controllers or parameters on your controllers that you can work with the whole mix of all the sounds coming from all the different places from computing device, with all your controllers or any other instruments that you might have, being able to control the volumes and make sure everything's smooth so that the performance ends up being really solid and similar volumes that make your performance really effective. And lastly, we have gestural control with alternative controllers or alternate controllers. And what that means is that there's a lot of different controllers that are a little bit out of the box, and we welcome those as well. So sometimes you might have experienced and really gotten a grasp on keyboards and grid controllers and your live looping, but you might want to add in a different kind of controller, maybe that just has a way that you can move your hands. There's things like performance interactive gloves, for instance, where you can make a gesture that can affect something in your performance. There's all sorts of controllers that can do that type of thing, and that goes even for different synthesizers that you might want to add. And those are a little bit out of the box, but we encourage, especially as you get into the upper levels, to start adding unique things that really resonate with you and your mission in building your performance rig. So, Michael.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Just one of the things just to add on to that, while we have this list up, what I'd invite you to do is maybe take note of all the things that you already do as part of your performance practice. And I'd be kind of curious from our perspective to maybe sometime later on today to learn a little bit about how you've gone into these. One other thing to add is that we do have in residence a number of different types of controllers. I don't know if anybody has heard of the Imogene Heaps Mimu gloves. These are really great state-of-the-art gestural controllers for your hands. We have 2 pairs of these. So again, these will be available to you to work with, to experiment with, but we're really going to be expecting you during the course of the program to really purchase your own performance controllers. Many of the things that you can use are around $100. We'll have special arrangements with manufacturers to get deals for you that we'll share with you. So moving on, just to talk for a second about the program. So the program it's a 4-semester instrument program. Okay, so it's not a major at Berklee. So you'll not be a performance major yet as an EDI player. So the program is part of something that's going to be administered in the electronic production and design department. We're also working with the ensemble department who will be supplying the ensembles that you'll be taking. Now, this is a little bit different because every other principal instrument at Berklee has its own department. So if you're a guitar principal, you have the guitar department. If you're a sax player, you have the woodwind department. But to get the program off the ground, we started the instrument in electronic production and design. Now, that doesn't mean that you are now an electronic production and design major. The major is something different from the principal instrument. So the principal instrument is something that really is what you use to get through Berklee's core music program, what we would call the performance package. So that will include private lessons. Berklee core music classes will tie into everything that you do in the program. So anything that you get in ear training in harmony, we look to amplify those things and help you really take the things that you're learning in the classroom and incorporating them with what you do with your principal instrument. Okay. Now, there is going to be a functional keyboard requirement that we'll talk about in just a second. So we're expecting everybody to have some level of proficiency with a keyboard. We don't expect you to be a piano player. We don't expect you necessarily even to use two hands on a keyboard controller. But what we do expect you to do is to have some basic proficiency so that you're able to do some performance with a keyboard. And it's also in terms of your core music classes, it's going to help you tremendously. And the analogy I like to make is coming to Berklee without having some basic keyboard skills is like going to Harvard not knowing how to type. So that's the thing that you really should be thinking about. This is part of being a literate musician working with a computer. And again, we're not inspiring you to be a keyboard player, but this is something that's just going to be part of your performance practice. So we have labs and ensembles, and the difference really between these things, you'll have ensembles every semester, but an ensemble is a place where you play with other musicians' repertoire. So you'd be playing different tunes, different particular musical pieces. Labs is a place where you develop skills. So there's a finger drumming lab. As Michelle mentioned, there's a live remix lab. And even though you'll be developing some repertoire in there, the focus is really to develop proficiencies in a lab, to develop repertoire in your ensembles. Okay, so just to take a look at how this all plays out for the 4 semesters, your first semester, you will have either 1 or 2 lesson blocks. So if you have 2 lesson blocks, that means you get an hour, a 50-minute lesson. Now, in the first semester, what you'll do is when we start in our registration week, you'll have the option of taking a keyboard proficiency exam. If you pass that keyboard proficiency exam, you will not have to take a keyboard proficiency class. If you don't pass it or you don't attempt it, you'll take 1 keyboard proficiency class and then a half-hour lesson. If you test out of keyboard, you'll have in your first semester a 1-hour lesson. Everybody, regardless, will get an hour lesson, so 2 lesson units, 2 credits of lessons in your second semester. In the third and fourth semesters, you have a half-hour each semester. So as you can see, you'll have at least 1 ensemble every semester, and then your third and fourth semester is the time that you can really start adding labs. And you're expected to do in your third, fourth semester a lab. Now, that said, you'll have a number of different opportunities to maybe add an extra credit here or there. You may have the opportunity to take a lab early, which we would encourage. And so these are just basic guidelines for how just about any principal instrument at Berklee is set up in terms of how you work with private instruction, labs, and ensembles. So the next thing up is faculty. I'm going to let Michelle talk about our faculty.
Yes, our faculty for EDI, our very first faculty member is the artist named Daedalus, also known as Alfred Darlington. And Alfred comes from the LA beat scene. You might have heard of him before. He is a faculty member of EPD, but he's also one of the main EDI faculty members. He teaches private instruction, and we'll get to that just in a minute. He is a nationally recognized solo artist, and he's really kind of on the cutting edge of where electronic music is. He's a very also out-of-the-box thinker, very, very imaginative, can help you explore more of your performance and some of the creativity that comes with performance, as well as he's really good with, you know, understanding how to build a performance career in that sort of thing. So what he is teaching is private lessons. So it's very possible that you would have a private lesson with him. He also teaches labs, from finger drumming to remix and mashup labs, all sorts of labs that we offer, and an electronic performance class, which is a seminar where students come together. They're doing listening, they're increasing their listening skills, they're increasing their knowledge base of different types of performance techniques, analyzing different performances, and then working on their own performances and finding their own voice and ways that you would like to perform as well. Will note that the private lesson teacher in the beginning is assigned in your first semester. Once you get through the first semester, then you can choose other private lesson teachers. Now, we also have another faculty member named Val Genty, an incredible person, incredible musician. She is actually in the ensemble department, and whereas Daedalus is in the EPD department, but both of them are the main EDI faculty currently. And she is a Haitian DJ from New York City, and she's a percussionist. So she's integrates percussion, conga, digital instruments, controllers along with a computer. And she DJs as well as sound sampling, and then she performs Haitian rhythms and percussion along with it. So her performance strategy and her style is pretty magical. It's very inspiring. She also performs a lot with jazz musicians, Terry Lynn Carrington being one of them. She's performed all over New York City and the world with groups of incredible musicians. And one thing that we suggest with her is also she does teach in the labs and ensembles as well. She does do some private lessons as well. And she's really good with the rhythmic side of things. So teaching, helping students really get with their timing and playing, making sure they're really on point, staying in rhythm, and also feeling a little bit more free with improvising with rhythm as well. She really supports that. So it's kind of a really deep and interesting combination with Daedalus and Val, both having different perspectives. And you'll find that in the other instrumental departments as well, is that each faculty brings something different to the table, which is giving each student a chance to learn very specific and detailed things in their own performance from these really unique and really masterful or virtuosic professors. So we also will tell you that we have a new faculty member coming on board very soon. We can't disclose too many details about that now until they're actually here with us, but they are coming, and that person is incredible as well. Is a Berklee graduate and has a lot of skills with performance, live looping, singing, songwriting, but getting that on the stage using a lot of controllers and live looping and that sort of thing. So we're really excited about these 3 faculty members for you to learn from, to be inspired by, and who are here to support you.
Great, thank you, Michelle. And we are definitely very excited about this semester. The program is growing, and the faculty member that we are bringing in, she's amazing, and really psyched about this next chapter in EDI at Berklee. So one of the things you're probably wondering, and somebody has already asked the question, is what do I do during registration week? So there's 3 things to think about. Number 1 will be the MTech 111 test out exam. So MTech 111, Intro to Music Technology, is a required course of all entering Berklee students. Now, we're offering a test out exam. The course is administered through EPD, But in the week leading up to registration week, you'll have the opportunity to take an online test out. Now, you'll get messaging on this from the college, so I would highly encourage you to be checking your email, looking out for this. You can do the test out exam. If you get an 80% or better, you will get credit for MTech 111, and you will not have to take the class. And you'll have 2 extra credits in your first semester that you can do anything you want with. And we have some great ideas, if you're an EDI player, of what you can do with those 2 credits to advance your skills as an electronic performer. So that's a really important thing. Just keep an eye out for that. Our assumption has always been that since your instrument is really technology, that you will most likely test out of this. That's not necessarily the case. And what we have found is many of you have spent a lot of time working with a particular piece of software. And then you know how the software works, but not necessarily the underlying concepts. So to do this, really brush up on your core music technology things. What's sample rate? What's resolution? What's the difference between full resolution audio file and an MP3 and an AAC? Different file formats you'll be asked about. What are the different types of effects? What's a low pass filter? What's a high pass filter? What's a compressor? These types of things will be part of what you'll be asked. If I have a 4-minute audio file that's stereo at CD quality, 44.1 kilohertz sample rate and 16 bits, how much storage will that take up? So these are all kind of foundational music technology concepts that you'll be asked about. So that's something to be thinking about. The next thing, you'll have the opportunity to take a keyboard proficiency. Now, this is totally optional. If you're not a keyboard player and you really, and it's clear, then don't worry about taking the exam. But we're assuming that some of you have some keyboard proficiency. Some of you probably have taken piano lessons in your past. And this is the opportunity to really kind of see how you stand with just functional keyboard. The exam is not particularly difficult, but we do want to make sure that you have at least functional keyboard abilities. So really think about that, and we'll be reaching out for you on that. We will be scheduling that exam for you with the piano department. That's administered by the piano department. And if you are taking the keyboard, functional keyboard class, it will be a keyboard class in the piano department with a really amazing professor, Ross Ramsey. Ross is a really great synthesist, and he knows a lot about electronic performance. So you'll be taking it with a kindred spirit of sorts. You will not be taking it with somebody who is going to make you do hand exercises. So we think. And then the last thing to think about is the ensemble ratings audition. And this is another audition that you'll do, and this will determine where you'll get placed in ensembles. Now, the thing to remember, it really doesn't matter where you start. And there's no glory in getting higher numbers because what you really want to be able to do is to have a successful experience in your first semester. So regardless what your ratings are, you will be placed in an ensemble where you'll be able to really kind of be successful and thrive and learn a lot. So Michelle, why don't you tell us a little bit about these ensemble ratings?
Oh, sure. I'd be happy to. So just to reiterate, when you come into Berklee, all of Berklee students are rated in ensembles. And we really do this just to place you. So we know that you're in the right place, in the right ensemble. We don't want you to be in an ensemble that is really doing things that's maybe beyond your skill level, so that you feel really uncomfortable and maybe even defeated, or you feel like not that you're having a rough time with it. We don't want to have you to have that experience, as well as we also don't want you to feel bored or feel like it's too easy. So we all go through these ensemble auditions at the beginning of your first semester, and so that we can kind of assess you. And all of the ensembles actually have a rating themselves. So they're set, and each student gets your 4 numbers for the ensemble rating. And each of the 4 numbers have a rating of 1 through 8. So we give you, in the audition, we give you different examples to play and different types of ways to assess your reading. So that's the first number, is your sight reading. And so you get a rating from 1 to 8, just, from 1 being more a beginner and on a new level, and 8 being really advanced. Then instrumental skills, how are you at playing your actual instrument? How well do you get around your instrument? And that also gets a rating 1 through 8. Then we do an improvisational exercises. How well do you improvise? Some people come in with a lot of improvisational skills. They're used to styles such as in jazz, or many different styles that are improvisatory, whereas other students come in stronger with reading, or more reading than sight reading than improvisation. Some students come in with stronger improv skills than sight reading. So it really depends on your background. And then the 4th number is the rhythmic interpretation. So how well are you at repeating rhythms? How well are you at playing them back, staying in time, making sure that you are playing well rhythmically? And so all of those get a number 1 through 8, and then the total number, you get an overall rating. So there are actually 5 numbers based on the 4 original numbers. And the example that we have is, here's an ensemble rating for someone, especially an incoming student might have a sight reading of 2, instrumental, but they're good at their instrument, they're getting a number of 3. And then with improvisation and rhythmic interpretation, they're at 2. Overall, they get a 2 rating. And so then they'll be accessible to, or to be able to get into the ensembles that are accepting students with ratings of 2. And that, we hope, is putting you in a very comfortable position where you're learning in the type of ensemble that you really need, and that you'll feel comfortable in getting better. So that's pretty much the ensemble ratings coverage. And one last thing to note is that everybody goes through these auditions. We just want you to be yourself. We just want to see where you are. It's only to assess where you are right now. And there's no judgment. You're already in Berklee. You've already been accepted. It's just not to place you in your first ensemble. Now, there is a possibility for you, as you improve, in the different semesters that you progress, you can choose to redo your ensemble audition in order to improve your rating. And so this isn't something that will stick with you your entire career at Berklee. You have the potential of redoing the audition and getting new ratings so you can get into different ensembles throughout your career. Okay, so that's pretty much the rating side. Michael, did you have anything else to add?
Yeah, the only thing, just, as a reality check, if we take a look at something like reading, ratings 1 through 8, 8 is you're ready to sit in with the Boston Symphony Orchestra and read Stravinsky. So it's a pretty high bar, so don't sweat it. Getting a 2 is good. Getting 3 is fine. No worries about that. And a lot of these kind of overlap. So one of the things you'll do in your audition is to do a prepared piece, kind of similar to what you did in your Berklee audition. And in that context, we'll probably give you the rating for instrumental skills. We'll also see how rhythmically accurate your performance is. So that'll play into rhythmic interpretation. So you're not necessarily going to get 4 separate exams for these things, but it really is going to be an overall thing. I would advise you to just, if you have some time this summer, just shed your sight reading, do some practicing in that, and that will help you out a little bit there. So proficiency exams. So every semester you'll have a proficiency exam, and we're really going to be talking about different types of proficiencies that we'll be looking at each semester. So there are 4 levels of proficiency. So the requirement for the principal instrument is that you complete all 4 of these, okay? Complete meaning pass. All right, so these are going to be centered around controllers. How well are you able to use a controller? And we're going to ask you during the course of these 4 levels to choose whether you're doing your proficiency using a keyboard controller or a grid controller. And throughout your 4 semesters, we're going to expect you to demonstrate proficiencies, all of these proficiencies using a keyboard and a grid controller. Okay, so the grade that you get for your proficiency exam averages into your private instruction grade. So let's say if you get a B in your proficiency and you get an A in your private lesson, you'll probably get an A minus or B plus, something in there. And that's determined entirely by your private lesson instructor. So these proficiencies, you do have to pass them, but they do also kind of factor into your grade. So the core proficiencies we're going to be looking at will be number 1, repertoire. Each semester, we're going to want you to do one prepared piece that will be a transcription of an existing track. So this is not the place where you're going to be doing original music. We're going to guide you to choose some things from the repertoire of electronic music, contemporary artists, to really kind of learn, transcribe, and perform as part of your proficiencies. Okay, musical elements will ask you to play scales, chords, and really to kind of be free with these things. So ideally, you'll be able to say, here's a D major scale, and I'm going to play a melody in D major, or here's a bass line in D major. So that's kind of what we'll be looking for in these proficiency exams. Rhythmic vocabulary, we're going to expect you to know certain rhythm patterns, to be able to play those, hold a steady groove, and to do some improvisation around the basic patterns. And then sight reading. So again, part of being a musician, an educated musician, is a certain level of sight reading skill. And so we'll be expecting you every semester to be improving at sight reading. And that takes all different forms. It could be actual music notation, it could be rhythmic notation, it could be reading chord changes, different types of reading. And again, the reading that we're going to expect from you is not going to be the same level of reading we would necessarily expect from somebody who's a jazz player. Okay, we're going to take a look at what are the common types of things you would see in prepared music for you as an EDI player. And this, ideally is going to help you in your ensemble because oftentimes in the ensemble, you'll go in, you'll get a written part and say, here's your part. You'll have a lot of latitude to develop your own voice for that part, but really to get the idea of the part, you'll be doing some reading. So,
I have one thing to add.
Yes, Michelle.
Just that last slide, just to, the scales and chords and what Michael was saying about, doing some improvisation with melodies and the chords, is the proficiencies are meant to be in connection with your core music courses. So that, they're some of the scales and chords and the different techniques that you're learning in your harmony courses, your ear training, these are also being reflected in your proficiencies. So we not only want you to understand and learn those in core music, your core music courses, but be able to play them on and apply them on your instruments as any of the other instrumentalists would. So that's a connection. We won't just ask you random scales and chords, but they'll be connected. You'll be told which ones you're responsible for in any given semester, and they'll generally be taken from the core music courses. So just to be clear about that.
Okay, great. Now, for you folks, do you have any questions for us?
So, Michael and Michelle, there is actually a question that came in while you were presenting. So just wanted to share that with you. Somebody wants to know, what textbook should students buy for MTech 111, and where can they buy it? Can they already buy it ahead of time, I guess is the question.
So there are no textbooks for MTech 111. So everything on the course is really going to be based on a web support. So there are no textbooks. So in that sense, your textbook expense is zero.
Wonderful.
That's nice. That's a nice perk. I imagine if you're asking that question to also want to study a little bit before, is maybe the idea behind that question. that there's a lot of different ways to study it, but really we just want to know where you are right now. So there really isn't a study guide so much as, you know, whatever technology you have access to, what you're using, you can just study the things that are available to you online, basic audio and MIDI, electronic music, just technology in general for audio is one way to prepare for it. But really, we just want to see where you are, and that's why there's not a lot of prep for that test.
Great. There's another question here. So for students who are taking their first semester completely online, can you talk a bit about how they will be able to do their auditions, their labs, ensembles and private instructions? How is that going to work online?
Okay, so it's going to be online. So it'll be through Zoom. So everybody at Berklee in this fall semester who's taking a private lesson will be taking lessons on Zoom. So there'll be no face-to-face meetings for any instrumentalist in private lessons. So labs, we've scheduled some labs to be on campus, and in the fall, excuse me, in the spring, and then the summer, we've had some of these remotely on Zoom. And again, these are things that don't necessarily require you to play together with a group. So these oftentimes are things that you'll be working with the instructor in the lab, and you can demonstrate your proficiency remotely. Ensembles are another story. You know, we are hoping to have as many of these as possible on campus, but if you are studying remotely, it'll be the opportunity for you to work with other musicians. And even though it may be difficult to do this in real time, they've developed a number of activities, a number of strategies to help you develop the type of playing that you would do in an ensemble. So it really is ultimately going to help you build your skills to play with other musicians. And so I think, you know, one of the things that we've seen about teaching a performance remotely is one of the best ways to learn and develop as a musician is to record. So when you play in a show, you know, if you make a mistake, it's gone. No, people don't notice it. And, you know, you can kind of, you know, get yourself through a lot of live performance situations, but you can't do that in recording. It really is, it's truth. And so in that sense, I think having this as a component of your ensemble experience is a really great way to develop a high level of skill based on what you're hearing yourself do. And again, a lot of times when we're performing, we're in the heat of battle. We may be listening to other musicians, other things that are going on, and we're not necessarily even listening to ourselves. Although, speaking from experience, when you make a mistake, you feel it in your bones. But yeah, does that answer your question a little bit? We hope.
Also, the auditions, we'll be doing those online as well.
Yep, on Zoom.
There might be as far as prepared piece, we might ask for a short video from you. So again, there's the recording
Right.
of you playing so that we can kind of assess that. But that also gives you a little chance to work towards it, and we'll be sending out more information about that soon, very soon.
And the one thing I'll say, we'll be sending out this week probably a questionnaire for all entering EDI students. And this is gonna be a great way for us to learn a little bit more about who you are, where you're coming from, what your performance practice is. But it's also a place where you can kind of tell us more about yourself. And you can even throw some questions in there. So it'll be the first opportunity that we'll get to meet you in a sense. So you should be looking for that. That should be coming to you in the next week or so.
Great, that's great advice. There's another question here. You mentioned earlier the use of Ableton Live, and so
Yep.
The student wants to know, will there also be a requirement for Pro Tools or Sibelius?
So in the EDI program, no. If you are, so every Berklee student in your entering bundle, you will get Pro Tools. And depending on the major you choose, you may in fact be using Pro Tools. So if you're an EPD major, there will be a couple of courses that you'll take that will use Pro Tools. At Berklee, the notation program that everybody uses officially is Finale, and that will be part of your entering student bundle as well. But in reality, I mean, if you're required to turn in lead sheets, it really doesn't matter what you do it in. I know a lot of film scoring students, you know, are using different problems. They're even looking at Dorado, which is the new scoring program from Cubase. But Sibelius enjoys a lot of popularity at Berklee. So you know, most of the time, when you bring your parts and you bring your score to an ensemble rehearsal, nobody's going to ask you what program you made them in. So it really is, you know, there's a lot of flexibility there.
And just to add, so your software bundle as an incoming Berklee student is Pro Tools and Logic Pro. So those two softwares will be in the bundle. And then as an EDI player, we require you to have Ableton Live. So just to distinguish the two. And then if you go into a major, well, everyone has to choose a major, hopefully in your second or third semester. Your different majors have different software requirements. So you'll have to look into that major to see what they require. Many of them in the tech division require Pro Tools and or Logic as well, but there might be some added things. Or in film scoring, it's Cubase or something like that. So there's really 3 different areas. There's entering Berklee student bundle, there's your EDI because you're a digital instrument. Instead of a saxophone, you're buying Ableton Live. And then there's the major bundle, which may be in addition to the student bundle, depending on the major.
And again, the idea behind the EDI program is that you can come to Berklee and become just about any major you want. A couple exceptions, it would music education. We still haven't, there's some extra requirements for principal instruments that we haven't come to yet, but just about anything at Berklee as far as a major goes, you can major in.
And we're not yet a performance major.
Right.
Otherwise, we'd be 8 semesters. So we're 4 semesters, and then you'll have to choose a major at this stage right now. You'll have to choose one of the tech writing or tech majors, or there's a lot of them to choose from.
And you have time. You have time to choose. So you don't have to decide now. You just start your first semester, and you have time to figure that out. So that's
exactly.
If you have here.
All right. Good questions. Anything else? Anything else?
So far, nothing else is coming in right now. Let's give it like a few. Oh, here we go. Can you apply for a major before completing the four semesters of EPD?
Okay, so EPD is a major that you apply for. EDI is a principal instrument that you're already in. So to apply for major, oftentimes you will choose your major at your second semester, but there are 2 majors, EPD and MP&E, that you have to apply for, have an interview, and go through an admissions process separately to get into the major. So, and you can apply for that after your first full semester, or if you're a transfer student, if you're bringing in transfer credits, you may in fact be able to apply for the major in your first semester at Berklee. But that really is going to depend on your situation. You have to have 24 credits completed by the end of the semester you apply in. So obviously, if you're starting college this fall, you'll have those 24 credits at the end of the second semester. If let's say you're coming in with 8 credits of transfer credit or AP credits that you may be bringing in from high school, you may be able to apply for EPD at in your first semester.
So yeah, very important distinction between EDI and EPD. One is the instrument, one is the major.
Right.
And you don't have to take EPD as your major as an EDI student. So
Correct.
you take whatever you want, any of the 12 majors pretty much. So
in our last cohort, last year, which was the first cohort of EDI students, They're choosing majors from film scoring to EPD to MP&E to pro music. Really, it's varied.
Right.
So it really depends on your interest, and there'll be more information coming at you, such as majors and minors fairs you can go to explore more, to actually talk to the people in the majors. And so you'll have more information coming about those. So don't worry too much right at this moment.
Great. Any other questions? Type away if you have anything. We have a few minutes left.
Oh, you must have done a really good job, huh?
Good.
Yeah,
And I will say that, you know, we'll be sending out this survey, you know, this week, and we really look forward to hearing from you in that. And that will give us a lot of information. And, you know, if you do think of any questions between now and then, please include those in that survey.
Excellent. Well, thank you, everyone. This was really great. This was very informative. I learned a lot.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alexia. Always a pleasure. Great to meet you, Drew. It's nice to put a face to an email address. So,
Absolutely.
We look forward to seeing you all soon on Zoom again, I guess, and at some point on campus. So we're very excited again to have you here. I'm just going to put up one last slide from the admissions side, just to remind you of, there is actually, let me see if I can find my slide. There is a deadline for you, which is the ESPA, and it's coming up July 17th. Make sure you complete your ESPA. I'm having trouble with the slide, but that's okay. So I'm just telling you. So July 17th is the deadline. If you have any questions about the ESPA, just email admissions@berklee.edu or directly to, you know, talk to your admissions counselor, but you can always just email our general admissions@berklee.edu email address, and we'll be happy to help you out. So again, July 17th, it's around the corner, so remember. All right, well, thanks again, everyone. Thank you, Michael and Michelle. Thank you, Drew. Have a good rest of the evening, everyone. Take care.
okay, take care.
Take care. Bye.